This is the Age Group Multisport podcast, the podcast that allows age group athletes to share their stories. Hello and welcome back to the Age Group Multisport podcast with me, Richard Conway. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good week. Training's going well. Lots to discuss on the racing front over the weekend. Age Group British Champs on and a duathlon qualification up there in East Fortune, and we'll have a dive into that in a minute. On this episode, we speak to Adam Phillips.
And ran the London Marathon the back end of my 20s and caught a bit of a bug from that, really.
Yeah.
Went on to do another 4 or 5 marathons after that and set the goal that everyone does when you've done your first marathon and go, what's next? The next thing was an Ironman for me. And so
Cool.
4 years later, I was there.
And Adam shares his journey from rugby and golf growing up into running and marathon running, and then into Ironman, not doing anything by halves. And then, due to injury, he's settled at the moment on doing aquabike. Had a great chat with Adam about all things triathlon. Also mentioned his battle with his thyroid diagnosis, which put him out of the sport for 4 years. And also talking about cycling, because we both love cycling. And the lucky chap is going to go and do the Paris-Roubaix course. He's done it previously and he's off to do that soon. And then he'll be able to watch the race. So, yeah, talk a lot about cycling. And as usual, he gives us his favourite bit of kit and hints and tips and what a week in training looks like at the moment. So that's all coming up. And as I mentioned a bit earlier, big congratulations to everyone who raced in both the British Championships at Alton Park and also up there at the qualifiers for the Sprint Duathlon for 2025. That's European Sprint Duathlon 2025 up in East Fortune, Scotland. And some of the guests we've had on did quite well at the weekend. Karina Kaufman and Donald Brooks both won their age group and become British champion. And also others that were racing that have been on the podcast. Quick mention for them. Mark Saggers, Simon Hall and Jason Williams. If I've missed you, do apologise. And racing up in East Fortune was our own Daniela Dumitrescu, who's been on our AMP Next Gen spin-off. And it was a qualification race. And if you want to hear how she did, head over to AMP Next Gen episode 11. And she'll explain how the race went and what she felt afterwards. Also up there racing was Ross Crombie, who was on our podcast back in 2023, I believe. And he's also sent us some video footage. And he's been one of the guys that have been sending over training videos and things that we put on our YouTube channel. So well done, Ross, for your race. I know it wasn't a qualifier for you because you've already qualified, but fantastic result nonetheless. And thanks very much for the videos. Much appreciated, and keep them coming. And as well as the age group duathlons that have been going on over the weekend, there was plenty of pros racing going on as well. And we managed to find live streams on YouTube of the European World Cup Championships. And there was quite some big names in this field, considering it's a World Cup and the top elite don't usually race there. But just I think it was down to Abu Dhabi being cancelled. So they really needed to get a race in for the season starter. So over there in the women, Georgie Taylor-Brown was making her season debut and she did well. She come third behind Cassandra Beaugrand, who was second, and it was the German Lisa Tertz who just ran away from them down the finishing straight. And yeah, a really close race up until that point, but she was the strongest on the day. But I'm sure Georgie Taylor-Brown will be really happy with that. In the men's elite, top of the pile was Hugo Milner from GB. Again, he come from couple of minutes behind, I think. He was lacking on the swim, made a bit up on the bike, and then he's just such a good runner. He come through the field, caught the leading two up, and stayed with them for a while, and then just left them. He had some success last year, and he's building on that now. He's also a great cross country runner, and he's done some really good cross country runs over the winter, and it's obviously paying dividends. So he's one to watch. Hugo Milner, well done. Vincent Louis was second, and Aurélien Jeune, the other French guy, was third. So that was some exciting racing. And then there was also a World Triathlon Cup taking place over in Hong Kong, and I think the guys who hadn't left Dubai, such as Max Stapley, went and raced that. Max finished sixth, and the winner of that was Alberto Gonzalez Garcia in the elite men. And over in the women, another Brit was top of the podium with Sian Rainsley. She beat Katie Zafiris into second, and Kirsten Casper, who ended up third. And Vicky Holland, who was also racing, finished 11th, and she had the fastest run time. So she'd be quite happy with that, I guess. And there's been no shortage of cycling either, with one-day classics over in Belgium and the Tour of Catalonia, won by Tadej Pogacar, who won 4 or 5 stages. Yeah, unbelievable. So, yeah, that's all been good. And last week, I had a complete week off. Did nothing for 7 days. Got to the point Mrs. C wasn't very well, and I'd picked up a bug as well, and just didn't mentally feel like it, and physically nothing was happening. So this is the first time probably in a long time that I've actually took a week off and not done anything at all. Just rested. So back on it today, went for a swim, and we'll pick it up and we'll go again. But did a bit of a video vlog on YouTube about how I was feeling at the time and the reason behind it. So if you want to have a listen to that, it's over on our YouTube channel. Still got a bit of a head cold and not feeling 100%, but swim was okay today. So yeah, I think we're on the right path back. And that's about it for now. So time for the main event. Hope you enjoy Adam's story, and we'll see you on the other side. For coming on, Amp. There we go. So everything all right?
Yeah, very good, thanks. Very good. Very good for a Thursday, at least, you know.
Getting to that end of the week, though. Unless you work weekends, of course.
Luckily not. Luckily not. Get to the end of the week where the training seems to like ramp up a little bit. Yeah.
Cool. So, have you heard any of the previous podcasts?
Yeah, I've been listening to a few actually. Interesting stuff. Really interesting stuff. I think it's age group journeys where people have got to balance work and life and families. Compared to all the stuff around the pros, which you know they're great and full of respect for them and that. If you can nap for 2 hours in the middle of the day, you can go hard at 6 in the morning and hard at 4 p.m. Right? It's kind of a given. But the journeys that some of the people have been on it's really impressive.
Whole idea of doing it in the first place, because as you just said, there's absolutely loads in there, and I listen to a lot of them, and some fantastic shows, and they have fantastic guests, but they were all geared towards the pros, and quite rightly so. So yeah, you're right, it's nice to have a platform and because it's a bit more real, to be honest, isn't it? Where are you based?
Between Reading and Henley down in Berkshire, probably about an hour outside of London.
Welcome along, Adam. Thank you ever so much for coming on, AMP, and spending your time and sharing your story. If you'd just like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
So, hi, I'm Adam Phillips, 43 years old, and I compete at Aquabike. I guess my story started, I grew up in the Southwest, left home and joined the military when I was 17 years old. Spent 8 years in the Air Force. During that time, had my first child who was diagnosed with autism. And it turns out you can't really be a present parent when you're spending 9 months of the year away with your mates flying around the world. So I retrained into building services and now work with some quite large buildings on like decarbonisation projects and things like that for big people in London and around Europe. Sports-wise, played a bit of sport as a kid. I probably didn't have the mentality and the patience that you need to really commit and get very good, but I played a bit of rugby and a bit of golf. And then probably I got a knee injury at 20, took a bit of a hiatus that kind of ended up being about 10 years, and then ran the London Marathon at the back end of my 20s and caught a bit of a bug from that, really.
Yeah.
Went on to do another 4 or 5 marathons after that, and set the goal that everyone does when you've done your first marathon and go, well, what's next? The next thing was an Ironman for me. And so sort of 4 years later, I was there.
Cool. I mean, that's like such a lot in such a short time there. You've sort of, I'm not saying you've rushed it, but it's like there's detail in there. First and foremost, interesting that you went straight into army from school. I've just done a podcast with a guy called John Pilkington, and he did exactly the same, and he's 21, and he left school straight into it. Really interesting, how he's in 4 years now, and it's really interesting how he's working as an infantryman and also trying to do his triathlon at the same time, and we discussed how that's supported and stuff. So that was really good. So how did you find? Did you do any sport when you were in the military?
Not a lot, to be honest. I found, I think, like the other activities to be a bit more, yeah, a bit more entertaining. The sort of socialising side of things.
Sure.
We'd have some kind of organised sports you'd do, but certainly then, and this is, we're looking at over 20 years ago now. Sport almost really existed for those who excelled,
Sure.
rather than being the inclusive nature that we know now.
Yeah. So from you spent 8 years in the forces, you said, and you came out. So how did the running take off then? How did that come about? Because you said, "Oh, I went and did a marathon." Yeah, but you don't just go and do a marathon. Just explain a little bit about that.
Um, yeah, well, it sort of was that really. I've always done a little bit of running, just stress busting or whatever. And I was living in London at the time. London's a wonderful place, like particularly if you get up early in the morning. It's a great place to go running because from sightseeing, it's really cool. But yeah, I got to know a few people who ran and a couple of people who did marathons, and I got a charity place for London, for the
Okay.
London Marathon in, I guess that would have been 2010, I think it might have been, yeah.
So that was it. That you trained with a group that were going for the same goal, basically.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't really know much about marathon running at that level or anything at the time, and just sort of immerse yourself in the in the kind of the culture of it all, I guess.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as with anything, you start to learn, oh, I work a bit harder, do something a bit differently. I might be able to get a bit quicker and everything. And do something a bit differently. I might be able to get a bit quicker and everything. And I'll say, like, I think it's 5 marathons plus the run leg of an Ironman, and I don't think I ever got it right. I don't
Right.
think I ever. I think there's something, isn't there? First half, next part's up to 20 miles, and then that last 6 miles. And yeah, I never, whether it was a fueling or going out too hard, I never really made it work.
Mm. And what was your best time on a marathon?
3:30 something. I was in
Pretty good.
Paris in 2011 or 12.
So you didn't just do local ones, then you went around the world and did some.
But to be yeah, to be fair, it's easier to get to Paris from London than it is to get to Glasgow. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Did a few in Europe as well, which was a bit of fun. Yeah.
So how did that then form into triathlon? And you mentioned Ironman there. How did that come about?
Um. So yeah, that's a good question actually. I think I was listening to some podcasts at the time, um, and one of them was, I think, is it I Am Talk,
Okay.
a bunch of New Zealand guys, and I think they're probably still doing it. I haven't heard it for a while. But yeah, I was like, it sounds like it's a bit of a challenge, right? I couldn't re- I could float, but I couldn't swim properly at the time. So joined a local tri club, took some swimming lessons, bought a bike. That was probably quite an important part of the journey. Yeah, and then stitched it all together. And I did the outlaw 4 weeks before I got married in 2014. So
Okay.
I was in excellent shape for my wedding photos.
Nice one. Yeah. Why are you doing an Ironman so I can get in shape for my wedding photographs?
I think so. My wife's incredibly creative, and we had our wedding on a farm down in Devon, and I think she wanted to, like, she didn't really want me in the way, so me sort of disappearing for 20 hours a week training kind of worked quite well, I think.
Yeah. And how did that fit in then with work and obviously you're getting married at that point?
Well, I wasn't as structured at that stage, and I was a bit sort of earlier in my career, so there was a lot happening quite late at night, quite early in the morning. So I'd run before getting on the train going into London, or I'd come home at sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, get to a swimming session or a track session in the evening. And at that point, predominantly, I only did my cycling on the weekends, and I only really worked around long bikes and long brick sessions. And obviously, what I know now is that's just the most inefficient way to do any form of training. And I think the whole concept of do a marathon 1 year, do an Ironman in a few years after that, I think that's probably a bit daft now. I think when you look at it, you should break it down maybe and go up through the distances a bit more.
There's no right or wrong answer, isn't it? It's whatever fits. So what Ironman did you end up doing?
So I ended up doing the Outlaw up in Nottingham.
Right. Yeah, you did say that.
In
I thought,
one of
yeah.
its earlier years, I think that was, yeah.
And how did it go?
It was great. Yeah, it was good. The run was the slowest run ever. Was the best part of 5 hours, but it was fun, to be honest. And I sort of at that point, I had a couple of like niggles in my legs going into it, so I adopted like a run walk strategy early on,
Right.
knowing that 4:30 to 5 was kind of going to be where the run would be. I come in 12:20, I think it might have been. So it's, for a first time, it was respectable, I think.
Yeah. And what happened after that then? Did you get the bug? Did you want to do more? Or some people say, I just never want to do that again.
No, I really got the bug. I was a member of a tri club, Tri2O, based in Reading.
Okay.
And I was doing a few sort of local triathlons. Then, sort of 7 or 8 months later, had a bit of an incident, ended up in an ambulance. Turned out I'd had a problem with my thyroid.
Okay.
So I had this. I've most probably had it for the majority of my life, but this overactive thyroid, so it produces too much hormone for the body, and if it's not controlled, it can release sort of toxins effectively that can create hyperventilation and your heart to beat. I mean, my max heart rate's the best part of 200, and on my Garmin it was 220. So it was a bit of a concerning situation. That then led to 4 year hiatus from the sport, whilst I sort of went through some treatment and some recovery on that, which was a little bit concerning. But when you look at the symptoms around the thyroid and the overactive thyroid, I've probably had most of them for the majority of my life. Anxiety being the main one. It's something that I have a general anxiety, and it's entirely related to the thyroid, I think. Yeah.
Right. And it took 4 years. And how did that feel then? I mean, when you found out about it, I guess it's like, obviously you mentioned anxiety there. You're gonna be anxious about it because you'll have known nothing about it until you've done your research. And were you out on a bike or a run something and something just happened or?
Yeah, I was out for a run, quite just an easy sort of 5K plod, and things were feeling very hard. I was going slowly, and things were going hard. The heart rate was spiking, so I sort of eased off and thought, well, I've got a bug, I've got whatever's going on, and then started walking home, and the heart rate still went up.
Right.
And then you're like, this is a bit concerning. My wife was also pregnant with our child at the time, so it was not a
Yeah.
great time to have everything kicking off.
No, no. So how long did it take them to realize that it was your thyroid? Was it pretty quick diagnosis or did you?
Yeah, I was incredibly fortunate. I have health insurance, and because of that, I was in with the doctor within a couple of days, in with a specialist endocrinologist within about a week, and then on a medication a few days after that. So I think all in all, it was about 10 days until we were on the treatment path. The medication was quite heavy, and I had to take quite a large dosage of it, which then meant I put on an awful lot of weight. Which, looking at photos, is quite funny. I put on about 25 kilos in about 4 months,
Wow.
which is it's hilarious until you've got to start buying clothes, and then it's not too entertaining when you realise none of your suits fit you. But that was a bit of a journey.
Yeah. And then you said it was 4 years. Why was it so long?
So it took just a bit of time to sort of get it under control. So where we're taking the medication, effectively you need to test the platelets in the blood every month or so to ensure that medication is working or it's not working too hard. And then when you get down back into like a normal range of thyroid stimulating hormone, that then impacts how much T3 and T4 that you produce. So getting them balanced out becomes a real, it's quite just a long process around that. I still have to take a small amount of medication every day and have tests. I think I have my blood done every 3 months now on it as well.
Yeah.
Pretty early on in the illness, when I realised this is relatively serious, I wrote a bucket list, and I thought, if I can get back, what am I going to go and do? What are the events? What are the adventures I want to go on? And it was sort of chipping away at those and thinking, well, actually, if running's not going to be possible for a while, I can cycle, because you can cycle quite gently. So actually, doing something like riding from London to Paris overnight, something like that could be a good catalyst. And I did that in 2018, in 23 and a half hours, which was fun.
Yeah. And what other things did you do then? What else was on your bucket list?
So on the bucket list there was do the Paris-Roubaix challenge, which I did 2 years ago, and I'm doing again in 3 weeks' time.
Right.
There was some other bits and pieces around exploring and night hikes, across Dartmoor and things like that that have been sort of sitting there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned Paris-Roubaix. Are you an avid cycling fan?
I am. Yes.
Well, it's nice to meet one because I am as well. And if you're anything like me, I watch everything incessantly. I've been watching both races today that have been on, and I think I drive my wife demented actually watching them all.
Well, no spoilers, because I've got the
No,
I've got the recording going on for Paris-Nice and Tirreno Adriatico to watch the
yeah,
season. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, those guys are fantastic, and I just love the sport. I have done ever since I was a kid, and I watch everything I can. And I just think that it's a fantastic sport to get into and just to watch. And
It is.
I love
Yeah.
all the tech as well. I mean, the bikes and it's just yeah.
It is. Are we going to mention helmets at this stage then? Are we?
That's yeah. I mean, that's yeah, why not? Because everybody else has in social media, and it's just, I think today was the first time that the commentators didn't bring the helmet debacle up. What did you think? What were your thoughts?
Well, it's an interesting one, because I mean, obviously this Giro helmet looks ugly as sin, but they're given a design sort of criteria by the UCI. They've been through a testing process apparently with it, and then the UCI have turned around after they put all that investment and that time into it, and they've said, "Oh, we don't like the aesthetics of this on a race." It's it is interesting. All that said, right, cycling still is something to look at, and it is beautiful watching a peloton rip through the French countryside. There's nothing else like it. So if you've got team time trial with everyone wearing effectively a sort of angled dustbin lid on their head, it does look a bit daft.
It does, yeah. I mean, it begs the question, doesn't it? After what I mean, you've just said it that they've got to go through these multiple stages to get this equipment passed, and I since read that they've banned, the sock that
Yeah.
that was in the S Works helmets. They've banned that now, and again, it's like they're making the rules, and I think a couple of the riders have said this. They're making the rules, but then if it gets too much publicity, like this helmet has, then they'll look at it and think, oh, it's negative towards cycling, and we're gonna take it away. You can't wear it anymore, despite having jumped through all those hoops in the first place, and we've agreed it. We've said it's okay because you're actually racing in a race with it. It just there doesn't seem to be any logic there, does there?
Exactly, and all that at the same time, whilst they're still continuing to investigate pressures and hookless rims, which clearly there is an issue with peloton low pressure and a hookless rim causing crashings.
Yeah,
So it's they're not helping themselves, I think.
no. And for anybody out there who hasn't seen it, which I find probably hard to believe, just Google
Visma bike lease.
Visma bike, Visma Lisa bike, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, just Google Visma Lisa bike helmet and it'll come up and you'll see what we're talking about. But yeah, it's bonkers. It's just totally bonkers. But you know, it is what it is. That's what makes the sport entertaining, I think, having these things in. So will you be watching Paris-Roubaix when you go over and do it?
Yeah, so we're going over as a family this time. It
Oh,
falls in
nice.
the Easter holidays, which is really good. So we'll pop over on the Friday. I'll do the challenge on the Saturday, watch the Fems, and then yeah, I'll probably watch from the velodrome on Sunday as well.
Oh, fab. We'll have a great time. Very
Yeah,
jealous. I'll be watching it on telly. I'll look out for you in the velodrome.
I'll be a broken man after riding the pave the day
I'm
before, but
sure you will, yeah. Yeah. You've done your Paris-Roubaix and you've had your bucket list. How did you get back into triathlon or multisport? I don't know whether it was triathlon that you got back into.
yeah, it was, triathlon at that stage. So I picked a couple of local 70.3s and sort of middle distance, sorry, and then yeah, put the program and the training into that. Started training with the club again. And I did the Cotswold 113 a couple of times just the other side of Swindon, and started to again like really feel that bug of the improvement and everything that went with it.
Cool.
Um, and then in I think twinge in my knee that wouldn't go away, which became a bit concerning, and I ended up a few months later having surgery to tidy up the cartilage. It turns out when I was about 20 or so, I took a tackle playing rugby with my leg trailing behind me, and someone coming from the side. I was told at the time I had strained my ACL. Turns out I'd torn it.
Oh,
So I've then done 20 years of life and training and everything with my knee just wobbling like that, effectively, grinding away at the cartilage. That's left me with a bit of narrowing behind the kneecap, so some sort of arthritis in there as well. So it's I think as we see it today, it's probably the end of me for running, really sadly. And that's where we came to aquabike.
yeah,
Um,
and I was just going to say the beauty of multisport is that even if you can't run, there are other disciplines that you can do, and you're a prime example of that getting into aquabike.
yeah, definitely the inclusive nature of that, and and similarly to sort of duathlon for those who have challenges with the water. It's fantastic. And this is something that even sort of 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I got into the sport, wasn't really there. It means the sport becomes like, even more accessible for a lot of people. That's a great thing. What's interesting, having gone on the aquabike journey and latterly into the age group stuff, there's more and more athletes that I've met and you're chatting away and that who've also got these quite long-standing lower limb injuries.
Sure.
So it is, yeah, it's great because otherwise, what are you going to do? Take up tiddlywinks?
Yeah,
It's ridiculous.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just because you can't do something doesn't stop you or shouldn't stop you from trying to find something else and going down a different path to keep that, you know, passion, I guess we can call it,
Yeah,
alive and keep us fit and healthy. And it's all about well-being, isn't it, at the end of the day?
it is.
Not
It is.
not just physically, but mentally as well. I think it's really important. Did you know about this came up? Had you ever done anything like that before?
No, not really. I knew a few people back when I got into the journey who were doing some age group racing, and at that stage, I kind of looked at them as being just something else, right? This other part of the sport that isn't for me. And then when I was on the sort of the trail back to fitness, I said one of the bucket list activities was race for my country. And I was looking through the British Triathlon website with the sort of details for qualification for different races, and I was like, well, 70.3, okay, pick the right race. I'm already within 10 to 15 minutes, so I need to sharpen the run, or I'm going to need to come out the water slightly further up the pack, whatever it's going to be to get myself into that sort of 120, 115% window. Um, and yeah, I then was like stumbling across it. I was like, aquabike, that sounds a bit interesting. I quite like time trialing. I really like going fast in the water. Yeah, put those two together and you haven't got to worry about a run. You're sort of looking at that becomes quite attractive. And then when I was waiting for surgery to be booked in, I put a time in from a 70.3 race that ended up qualifying me for Valshy in 2020. It got cancelled and then
Okay.
got cancelled again in 2021 because of the pandemic. So then, my first race was Bilbao in 22, the European middle distance that was.
And do you prefer the longer distances to the short ones?
I do, yeah, yeah. I find I've my engine it's designed to go longer. I can put percentage wise a relatively higher power out for a longer period of time. I have got a place at Torremolinos now, not Malaga.
Yeah, I saw that come
Yeah.
through. Yeah,
Got an apartment in Malaga for book for a few of us to stay in, but I've got a place in the standard distance in October this year, so I'll do a few, but I think that sort of 90 to 130, 140k TT distance suits me a bit better, I think.
yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? Along the journey, you find out what works and what doesn't, and what you're better at than not really. And I think it just takes a little bit of time to work that one out, and also what you enjoy doing.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and especially when you get to age group, what you're going to be competitive. You know, I'm in the process of looking at a podcast about qualifying
yeah.
because you know you can get onto the British triathlon website and look at the qualifying. But there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more detail, isn't there? And that's something that I'm looking at. And I think knowing and using your strengths, as we say on this program quite a lot, you know, is really important. And that whether it's like doing aquabike instead of running, or looking at the races and who else is racing, or looking at the type of course that it is, whether it's hilly or whether it's flat. You know, there's so much goes into it rather than just rocking up to a race having trained for a period of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. When you look again at the middle and long distance as well, there aren't sort of set qualifiers for those. This is based on a percentage of time. So I'd always sort of say to anybody looking to begin that journey is pick that race. Understand. I mean, I talk about the Cotswold 113. It's a relatively flatter bike course. It's an amazing swim in a beautiful lake, and the runs on soft ground. And because it's not a sort of big branded event, the fields are generally going to be a little bit smaller and potentially a little bit slower. So your ability to get your 115 or your 120% that you need might be higher there than going to Bolton or the Outlaw, which is now incredibly popular, or over in Swansea or wherever.
Sure.
Mm.
So you mentioned there that some of your teammates or who you started off with already did age group. Is that how you found out about age group?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
we had probably half a dozen members of the club at the time
yeah,
who were all exceptionally quick at every discipline, all have very shiny bikes, and they're really nice people when you get to know them. But when you look at that, like that's not me. I'm the beginner. It's a different category almost at that stage.
sure. And so then when you wanted to get involved, did you get advice from them or how did that come about? Did you just go on your own path and look at British Triathlon website?
I went down my own path. I looked at the British Triathlon website, and at about that time, I signed up with a coach as well, who had
Right.
previously done the age group stuff and gone a bit beyond that. It's actually a guy called Callum Hughes from Velo Clinic. You had Andy Tucker on a few
Yes.
months ago now,
Yeah, yeah,
who's also coached by Callum. And yeah, I listened very hard to his sort of pearls of wisdom around it. Really, he's been on that journey. So
yeah.
yeah,
And it's
he's
great
brilliant.
to have that support and somebody who knows, you know, what you need to do for it, isn't it? And give you that backing.
Yeah, it definitely is, and not everyone needs a coach. I think, well, although there's very few examples of people getting a coach and not getting quicker. So it might be something there. I think for me, having somebody who is able just to set the sessions, look at the data, and say, this is where we're going to go, this is what we're going to do. That's really helpful. It takes a whole lot of stress away.
Yeah,
I've got a busy job, busy family, busy sports life. As much as I can do to sort of outsource the responsibility and just have to push my legs around,
yeah.
that's really important for me.
So after you'd qualified and you'd raced over in Bilbao, how did
Mm.
that go?
Yeah, it was good. It was all right. I like to be quite prepared for things. So I'd never raced a triathlon overseas. So I went over and did Marbella, 70.3 earlier in the year to sort of just to get used to flying with the bike, get used to all the stuff that goes on around those sorts of things. I made sure we had an exceptionally hot summer that year, so I made sure I was out in the heat of the day, getting myself prepared for that. And I made sure my legs were quite in a good place for climbing. Then when we got there was a monsoon and it was about 8 degrees, so all that prep was kind of out the window. But no, it was okay. It was a good experience. I come in 14th in the age group, something like that, which was sort of fine. Struggled on descending in the rain. You're sort of in the foothills of the Pyrenees. The descents are quite meaty there. But yeah, it was good. And then we, as a sort of age group team, all went out for a few drinks afterwards, which was great because you get to know other people. And we now have a WhatsApp group
nice.
that was set up for going out for a beer, and it's just morphed now into a bit of a community, which is really good for liaising around racing and someone to listen to my moans and gripes mainly.
Yeah, but it's great to have that support, isn't it?
It is the power of community, in particularly what is an individual sport. I'm fortunate to have a coach and a coaching group, a tri club, and a WhatsApp group. If I need advice, it'll always be there. If I need support, it's always there, and I'm always able to give that back as well. So yeah, it's really good.
Brilliant. Yeah. So what was next then after you'd completed that one?
So then we went to Ibiza in May. That was cool. I don't know if you're out there, but the festival. So they split it in with the sort of aquathlon and stuff up in the north of the island, and then the tri and the aquabike down in Ibiza town itself, and had a PTO race on the same weekend.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
It was awesome. It was a proper festival of sport. You've got an island that's designed to bring in loads of people in the summer, and it was just before the season. So loads of hotels. The roads are in good nick. The beaches are fantastic there, and the water swimming in that was wonderful. That was I think I come in 9th in the age group, maybe. I think you've got the results in front of you, so you probably know more than that.
You did. You come in 9th, exactly 9th. Yeah.
Coming 9th. It was fun. Climbed the hills better than I thought I would, actually. When you look on the map, they looked a bit longer than they probably were. They're more sort of punchy and a little bit more similar to certainly hills down in the south of Britain, where they're sharp and then flat and then sharp again. It was a fun experience, actually. It was good. I was out there for about a week. It was a good week.
Yeah, I mean, we went to Ibiza in 2018, the first time that they'd put anything on, I think, and it was a fun place. Really, really. I mean, there was a few niggles that they needed to sort out, but having not run anything like that before, you can forgive them for that. But yeah, overall, it's a fantastic place to go and race. So after that, what was the last one you've done?
So I was in Menen in Belgium, and unbeknown to me, I caught COVID just before the race. So again, like I won't fault the organisation. The Belgians put on it's a cycling pedigree, but they know how to throw stuff at the sport. I came out of the water in an okay position and then started to cramp, which is very unlike me. I'm sort of drinking water and hydro tablets all the time. I started to cramp just sort of jogging over to the bike, and then I couldn't get any power going for the first half of the bike ride. Then found my legs, and I've been swilling sort of energy drink and everything to get going. And then 2 days later, tested positive for COVID. And I was like, oh, right, that probably explains it. And I think I limped into about 11th, which is still like, that right, 11th in Europe. That was all right for my age.
They're three pretty damn good results. You know what I mean? By anybody's standards. So yeah, absolutely. So cool. So what you've got a race coming up in October, you said, Torremolinos, because it's just been changed.
Torremolinos, yeah.
Have you got any qualifying? You don't really do qualifying races, do you? I mean,
we have qualifiers for standard distance. Yeah. So I qualified for that at I think it was St. Neots back in September sort of time.
Are you doing any of those this year?
I'm probably going to, I need a conversation at home first. So I'll probably do the qualifier. I'll do one of the qualifiers that lines up with my diary. The standard distance world championships next year are in Wollongong in Australia.
Yeah.
So before this goes out, I need to have a conversation just to sort of say I'm thinking about buggering off for 10 days to Australia. They don't fall in the school holidays either. So it's not the sort of thing we could take our 8-year-old out and go to. So I'll need to have a think about that. I'm doing the European Middle in June, actually, in Coimbra, in
Oh, right,
Portugal.
yeah. Well, we'll see you there.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's
I'm
looking
not
good.
I'm not racing, but my wife is, so
Excellent. What events you doing?
she's doing the sprint duathlon.
Nice, nice. Their social media and their sort of work they're doing to promote it's really good.
It is amazing. I'm really looking forward to going. It looks a lovely, lovely little town.
It
Uh,
does.
really looking forward to. I haven't been to Portugal for a long time, so
Yeah, yeah, and nothing against racing in Spain. It's really nice to see other countries coming forwards though, and you know, sort of obviously Spanish cities are really supportive of putting events on, which is great. But it is a European Championship, so it is nice to move it around the continent. You know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we were in Italy last year, and that was nice to be somewhere like you've just said, somewhere different. And then again, Portugal this year, so that's again somewhere different.
Yeah, yeah.
Because, like you say, there's nothing wrong with Spain, but it does get a bit repetitive, doesn't it? When you get the same country. And to be fair to them, if it wasn't for them, some of them wouldn't exist. So, you know,
Yeah, I've got no doubt about that. And
yeah,
you just have to look at the challenges you get trying to close roads in the UK. Yeah, it's the sort of business case to host a festival of sport. Obviously, you're going to bring in a lot of money through tourism, but the infrastructure that has to be there, and it's yeah, it's a big bit of work.
it is. Cool. So, have you got anything to add? That's a great story. Really enjoyed that. You've been on a up and down journey, as we all do, but you come out the other side, which is great, and you continue to race, which is even better. Anything else that you'd like to add before we go on the quick fire round?
No, nothing I can think of at the moment. Rich, no, no.
Cool, cool. So the first quick fire question is, what's your favourite bit of kit?
Oh, well, so that's the part we haven't gone on to actually. So I know you're a massive fan of heart rate variability. So for me, because I'm not allowed to say my Huxon Tri bike kit, but the Aura Ring
Oh,
is
okay.
absolutely superb. So from a general health management point of view, being able to monitor HRV, blood oxidation, and sort of all the other gubbins, it's a really good early indicator towards an illness. And from a recovery point of view, sort of knowing where your HRV is every day is really useful. It also means I can sort of I know I can push a bit harder in a session if I'm quite high and recovering well, or if it's slumping, then I know that actually I probably need to ease back off, so you can like maximize that. Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
the Aura Ring's absolutely brilliant.
Well, you're the first person on the pod in 4 years that's mentioned the Aura Ring, so congratulations. Just, just a
Well,
question then.
there are others. There's
Well, I was just going to ask, why did you go for the Aura Ring rather than the Whoop or just a Garmin watch, which does the same sorts of things?
well, I've got a Garmin watch actually, and I don't find the accuracy is good, to be honest.
Right.
My wife bought it for me for my birthday a couple of years ago, which is why I go for it. And interestingly enough, it's her birthday next week, and she's going to be getting a Whoop, so we'll be able to do a direct comparison.
That'll be cool.
But yeah, I think Samsung are bringing out a model as well, and Apple have got one in development. So this is sort of the next level of wearable, I think. But
Yeah.
it's yeah, absolutely great piece of kit.
Yeah, my son, he's just got the Whoop. He's into CrossFit and he's just got the Whoop and he's loving that at the minute. So yeah, cool. Excellent. What I meant to ask you earlier, what does a week of training look like for you at the moment then?
So this week, I think we're at about 14, 15 hours, which is, I haven't got training peaks up. I think there's one strength session this week, 3 swims, 3 bikes, 4 bikes, actually. And 2 of the bikes will be a lot longer, Saturday, Sunday. Although it's Mother's Day this Sunday, and I'm
Yes.
coaching kids rugby first thing. So whether I do that 3 hours then or I apportion that over my next 3 bike rides, I've still got to work that one out, actually. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, life and family is important and you gotta do that first, haven't you, really?
Yeah, it is definitely, and certainly earlier in the year and towards the back end of last year, there's an awful lot of strength and conditioning. We're probably doing 3 sessions a week in and
Yeah.
around that, making the most of the time to where you're not racing, to sort of prepare the body for the next year. And then in the swim sessions, they're loosely broken down more into like one technique, one speed, one endurance.
Sure.
And again, in the winter, just focusing a lot more on technique.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it sounds simple, doesn't it? But it's just that's what it needs to be, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
In all those points, and it doesn't have to be like it's not rocket science, is it? At the end of the day,
No, it's not. I do. I have added a rest day in every week this year, and traditionally, sort of typically, I'll put them in on a Friday, and then as life changes, move them.
yeah,
But like an ideal kind of rest day for me would be one where I'm working in London, so you've got a bit of walking in there as well. So you've probably got 15,000 steps in, which is a nice bit of active recovery, and that's touch word that's working so far this year as well.
yeah. I mean, yeah, recovery is really important, as is good sleep, and the Aura ring will tell you all about your sleep as well, won't it? Which is really handy. Um, what resources do you go to then to help your training or help in the multi-sport field?
So obviously coached and he's my first sort of port of call. I listen to a lot of podcasts. So obviously this one, as we sort of mentioned, there's some other bits and pieces that are quite good. I think everyone knows about like how they train and Pro Tri News and Triathlon Mockery and that side. There's a couple of others. Like Rich Roll does some really interesting bits. His interview with
Amazing.
Chelsea Tadaro was exceptional. Sports Spiel, similarly, maybe a slightly sort of lower budget than Rich Roll, but yeah, that's another decent resource as well. And then on the backside as well, I drive a lot, so podcasts and audiobooks are quite good. So
Yeah.
I'm listening to Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus at the moment. That's quite
Okay.
cool.
I'll make a note of that one.
Yeah, I'm early into it, but it seems good. It seems good.
Yeah, cool. We're always looking for good books to read. And I guess finally, what are your short and your long-term goals? I guess we've discussed your short with your races coming up. If you've got anything else you can add to that.
Yeah, the short term is to get my fitness back to where I was in sort of June last year. And if I can have that done by June this year, that'd be great. If it's closer to October, that's probably more likely. I sort of think coming out of this year in a stronger position to have a very good 2025. That's kind of the short term goal. Longer term, I was asked this a couple of years ago, and I don't think my answer's changed actually. So I still want to be doing this in my 60s. If my little current 8-year-old, when he's older, he wants to do it with me, cool, that's his choice. But yeah, to still be able to travel the world, ride a bike, jump in a sea, if I can still do that in my 60s, I will be delighted. I think that's the real long term goal.
Cool. That's a great. I mean, it's about a lifestyle, isn't it? And it's about being as healthy as you can be for as long as you can be. And I mean, that's a great goal to have. I think that's my goal as well, to do this for as long as I can and to stay as fit as I can. I'm 56 now, and
Yeah.
it time just rolls by, and you realize that you just have to keep going, and strength training, like you mentioned, is such an important part of that journey as well. And it's good to hear that you're doing it, because I know a lot of triathletes don't do it. um
Yeah, it's massive, and I've noticed since 10 to 40, the need to lift heavy things it just works for the body. My wife is perimenopausal, and
yeah.
all the science and the research that says about resistance training, supporting with that like natural drop off of testosterone.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a massive thing, and I don't think it's overstated to say you're buying extra years in your life by getting in the gym. So it's so important.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, it's been great to chat to you. Thank you ever so much for coming on and sharing your story. Really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed meeting you. And yeah, just thank you very much.
No, cheers, Rich. Yeah, good to meet you. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Once again for reaching out and coming on and sharing your story. Really enjoyed the chat. Yeah, and learnt a bit about thyroid. And glad to see you're on the other side, and you've got it under control and you're back racing. So that's really nice. Good luck with Paris-Roubaix. It's going to be a blast. I hope the race lives up to expectations. I'll be sat in me living room watching it. Like I said on the pod, I'll be looking out for you in that velodrome. And I think he's the first aqua bike athlete we've had on, and I should have picked his brains because not being able to run at the moment, it's something that I might look into doing. So there's always something for us to go and race, even when we're injured, like myself and Adrian now, we can go and do a aqua bike. And we always say that's the great thing about multisport. So that's about it for this episode. If you would like to get in touch, you can do. You can reach out to us on email, which is agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at amp_1967, Facebook at ampgb. We're on X at agegroupmultisportpodcast, and our YouTube channel, as mentioned before, is ampgb, and you can go across there and look at all the videos that the age group athletes are sending across and we're putting up. And please do subscribe and share and tell all your friends and multi-sport athletes that you know that we're here, and we're here for one, to try and entertain you guys and inspire you with all these fantastic guests, and just have a bit of fun and make a community. So yeah, please do get involved, and if you've got any videos that you'd like to submit, please reach out, and we would love to put them up, share what you're up to. And finally, don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.